So I want you to give him your warmest welcome, and let's hear about the resurrection. Testing. I'll work on your mic.
All right, so,
I think you're on.
am I on?
No?
No? All right. Let's go ahead and open up in prayer. Father, I'm so thankful to be here this evening, so thankful to see everyone. Father, this week has been such a uplifting and encouraging week, and we just thank you for the gifted speakers that you have brought here and for the messages that they've delivered to us. Father, I just pray that you have blessed our time and that we have drawn closer to you through what they have brought to us, and help us follow you more closely. Father, this evening, as we talk about the resurrection of your Son, we just pray that you use this time to glorify you. In Jesus' name,
Amen.
Well, I want to thank Mel for having me out, for Eric and Dr. Fernandez for inviting me to come out. I appreciate the invitation. I don't know if you got, who's been to all of the talks? Who's been able to make all of them? Yeah, we have a few, huh? They're pretty good, right?
Awesome.
I missed the daytime on Tuesday and on Wednesday because I work, or I work. And so I was working, so I could only make the evening sessions until today. I took the day off to be here all day, and it was really good. And I really enjoyed it, so I did want to thank them for having me out. The resurrection. What I'm going to talk about tonight is evidence for the resurrection for Jesus. All right? Now, why do we want to talk about the resurrection? Why do we want to talk about evidence for it? I would contend that the resurrection is the linchpin to most, if not all, of our Christian doctrine. Chris Wagner spoke on Monday night, and he talked about reclaiming the biblical view of salvation. You can't have salvation if Christ didn't rise.
That's right.
Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians 15. Right? He said we're still dead in our sins if Christ hasn't risen. Is it pastor or is it Dr. Wallace? Pastor? Pastor Wallace talked about eschatology, right? End-time prophecy. Well, there is no end time. There is no second coming of Christ if Christ is still dead, if he doesn't come back. And so we need that. We lose inerrancy and we lose infallibility of the Bible. We lose the Trinity. There's all kinds of things that we lose from that perspective if the resurrection doesn't happen. So, on the other side of it, there's people who like to attack and criticize and try to undermine the resurrection, and they try to come up with all kinds of different explanations for why it may have happened, or for what may have happened. And then when they can't come up with explanations for it, they say, well, it didn't happen. It's just made up, it's a myth, you're delusional, whatever the case may be. So tonight, I'm going to give 5 lines of evidence for the resurrection. Now, there's a lot more lines of evidence that we could give for it, but we barely have time for 5. We could actually spend quite a bit of time just on these 5. But we'll get through it as quickly and hopefully as clear as possible. So the 5 lines of evidence. The first one is going to be death by crucifixion, that Christ died. Okay? The second line of evidence is going to be that his followers believed that they saw him post-mortem, that they saw him after he was dead. The third line of evidence will be the conversion of the church prosecutor, Paul. The fourth line of evidence will be the conversion of the family skeptic, James. And then the fifth line of evidence I want to present will be on the empty tomb. Okay? So, you guys ever watch, well, never mind, I'll maybe I might come back to that. Let's talk about the crucifixion. Did Jesus really die? Well, how did he? What does the crucifixion involve? Well, for the Romans, it started out with a scourging. Right? So they would take the criminal and they would tie him to a post, and they would take out the whip, and they would whip the victim. Now, whipping isn't fun, but you would probably want to be whipped by the Jews rather than by the Romans, because at least the Jews stopped at 39 lashes. Right? It was 40 minus 1. They were afraid to go to 40 in case they miscounted and went over. Well, the Romans didn't have any type of set number. It was more they just whipped until, I guess, they felt they were done or they were tired. And oftentimes, the crucifixion victim didn't make it to the crucifixion. They would actually die from the scourging because it was so brutal. So, there's that. First you start off with that. So after the scourging that he endures, then they take, well, they do various other things. I mean, they mock him, they hit him, they put the crown of thorns on his head, they put a robe on him, right? And they take the robe off. And then they take the patibellum. I think I'm pronouncing that right. If you know what that is, the patibellum is the crossbeam that fits onto the cross. You guys seen Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ? Well, in that movie, he's carrying the entire cross, right? Sorry, excuse me. Man. See, I think it's standing up here. I shouldn't have right now. I don't think it's up. Excuse me. They typically wouldn't have them carry the entire cross. It was usually just a crossbeam, and they would tie it to him, and then they would have to walk it out. Now, it's still pretty heavy, and after you endure the scourging, now you've got to carry this thing. So you carry that out to the place of execution, and when you get there, that's when they nail you to it and lift you up and put you on the stake or the post or the part that's fixed into the ground. So, did Jesus die on there? Well, the Romans were good at several things, and one of them was execute people. They had squadrons. You'd have a centurion and 4